lost mine in the sand. Where will you stand?
Live from Modine and somewhat awake in Franklin, North Carolina, back from a trip to Colorado. And Hanok, I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you because I've been around you when you're traveling. This traveling thing is getting more and more difficult all the time.
I totally understand. One thing you should be very grateful for is you only had one place to go.
Yeah, and I only had one plane, but it just
Yeah.
gives you such a nice, warm feeling inside when you're standing there in Denver Airport and you're about to go through the TSA, thugs standing around, those that take scissors away,
Yeah.
and you look over and you see this Arab guy that's wearing a keffiyeh. Um, it just warms your heart, Hanok.
Well, I remember when you picked me up in Atlanta,
Oh yeah,
last trip. So I get off and there's like this Muslim high school, boys in keffiyehs, girls in hijabs. And I'm thinking, this is like, this is, but then I thought to myself, you know what? It's better there than here.
well,
So
yeah,
I content myself that way.
that is true. But if anybody wants to get more of an idea of some of the aspects of what's going on here in the United States, at about an hour from now, I'll be online with Barry Phillips, Foundations for Life, and we're going to be talking about the empowerment of Islam in the United States specifically. But and part of that probably rolls into something. While I was sitting up there in Loveland, Colorado area, we all of a sudden got a news report that there was a terrorist attack in Boulder.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, there are so many things I want to jump into, but we'll start with this. So somewhere, I think it was on Christmas, in New Orleans, guy drives his truck through a crowd of people. He's got a big ISIS flag.
Yeah.
That's not a Muslim terrorist attack.
No, 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 never,
Okay.
never could be. No.
Okay. Yaron and Sarah, workers at the Israeli embassy, gunned down. The lunatic is yelling, "Free, free Palestine." And they're kind of like, is that a terrorist attack? And here in Boulder, a march to bring attention to our hostages that are still being held. This Muslim, whose name is Muhammad, and it's so interesting to see the way the media was saying, like, well, we don't know this is a terrorist attack. CNN criticizes the FBI. How do you say it's a terrorist attack? Well, I'll put it to you this way. A Muslim man by the name of Muhammad screaming about getting rid of all the Zionists, and he's doing this for his people, sets Jews on fire, elderly Jews, an 88-year-old survivor of the Shoah, the
Yeah.
Holocaust. It's like, gee, I wonder if this is all connected. And you know, my first trip to the US after the war started was in January of 2024. And I went over a number of terms and I told people, pay attention. These are going to be big things. And the hardest thing about being a public speaker, being a presenter, is when you're flashing something on the board behind you and you're telling people it's important and you're looking at the audience and you're seeing this.
Yeah.
And one of them was the term globalize the Intifada. And I went over again what the Intifada was. Well, we've been hearing this on major American and European university campuses for 20 months now.
Yeah.
And guess what? The Intifada has been globalized. These are not strike teams that sneak through Mexico, terrorist cells. This is in America today. it's very, very scary. And I have to tell you, it is shocking to me how many people that I know here in Israel who've said to me, "Are you still planning to go to America?"
I mean,
Now,
I can,
it's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I'll be encountering people who will be saying, "Well, I love the idea of the Connect to Israel tour that you and Mike have, and but like I don't know, I'm a little anxious. You're a little anxious? Jews are getting set on fire in Colorado. Okay, this is we're not talking about Patterson, New Jersey, where the Arab American police wear the flags of the PLO. This is this is this is way over the top.
Well, and on that, Hanok, I don't have the details of it, but just a brief report that I received the other day, and this may have changed since. But the Dallas this year, Hayavel is doing the Israel Summit in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah,
Okay, Texas. We're not talking
yeah.
about Massachusetts or something, but in Texas. And it appears that the last report I got, okay, this could change, check with Hayavel and everything, but they have had to look at different venues again because of the threats regarding this. Now, you can
Yeah.
mess with a lot of people, but Josh Waller, Luke Hilton, those guys, that's just dumb. Okay, on many levels, you just don't mess with these guys.
Okay. It's the worst fears that Rav Kahana brought out to us 50
Hmm.
years ago of, anti-Semitism and violence against Jews. Now, of course, 50 years ago, no one was talking about Muslim immigration. That was like no one had even conceived that this would be possible. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember seeing signs of marches in Germany saying that, you know, about welcoming refugees, that they're not dangerous, they're in danger. And, so Europe, most of Europe, Poland did not, Hungary did not open their doors. And look what's going on in France. Now,
Oh yeah.
in the midst of all this, you've got enormous pressure on Israel from many countries in Europe that we used to be friendly with. The UK, France, Germany. Spain just canceled a $325 million deal for anti-tank missiles from Rafael. We are feeling tremendous economic pressure. Italy has spoken out again. I mean, this whole idea that we have to stop what we're doing in Gaza, and no one is saying we need to pressure Hamas to free the hostages and then this thing will be over. No one, no one from any of the European countries.
Well,
All they
they
can do
did
is
send
mention
you
it.
Greta Thunberg the other day. So,
Yeah, she's on her way. I actually saw an interesting article here in Israel that said we should make sure that she lands.
oh yeah,
And make sure that she lands.
yeah.
And let's see what, and but again, here is the thing that astounds me. And every time I put together a presentation to deliver in the US, I say to myself, do people know this or do they not know it? Should I go over it? Or can I now? I can no longer assume anything because the UN had stated, it was about 2 weeks ago, that 10,000 babies
Yeah.
die within 48 hours if aid doesn't get to them. Now, the number 10,000 was specific. It wasn't like several thousand. It wasn't more than 9,000. It was 10,000. Now, it turns out the original report stated that 10,000 children, not babies, after a year of difficult conditions, would run the risk in a year from now of being malnourished. there's something magical about the 10,000 number
Yeah.
because a week later, the issue of aid trucks. Now, again, remember, I want to remind everyone water and electricity in Gaza is free, provided by us Israelis. Every single month, I pay for water and I pay for electricity. But the Gazans don't have to. But the UN stated that there were 10,000, again, this number 10,000 is a magical number, 10,000 aid trucks lined up to bring supplies into Gaza. Now, 10,000 trucks from Gaza would basically take you near the Kinneret. There would
At
be,
least.
we don't even have roads that long. It
Yeah.
would be, Route 90, which goes from Eilat to the north of the. I mean, it would be. But the world believes it. There's no one out there who thinks there isn't genocide. Of course, they say genocide, genocide, genocide. No one knows what it means, nor do they care.
Well,
And
it's
we
with
still have.
this thing the other day with this, the IDF is shooting the Wall Street Journal, CNN, all these propaganda media, as I started calling them, picked this up and started reporting it as truth, but they had to come back and, somewhere in their, in the deep recesses of their reporting, they said, "Oh, by the way, that was a lie."
The
But,
Washington Post retracted the story.
yeah.
But to me, it is unbelievable. And I still see, I love this, gays for Gaza, queers for Palestine. There's still, I mean, it's just, and again, demonstrations are back on major college campuses, and you watch the university graduations and the demonstrations and the speeches and the signs. It's astounding.
Well,
Now,
I'm sure you saw the picture of Mohammed there as he's using his makeshift flamethrowers, and behind him is an LGBT whatever flag. Now that would be if you took that flag and Mohammed to Israel to Gaza. It's actually Israel, but if you took that to Gaza and he was associated with that flag, he would have been firebombed right after, and they would have used the burning flag, to light him on fire. It's crazy
astounding.
to.
It's astounding. Now, meanwhile, okay, so what else is going on? So we still have these missiles from the Houthis.
Hmm.
It's become a regular thing. And we now have an addition on our phones that gives us a 1 to up to 2 minutes heads up that there's going to be an alert in your area.
Wow.
Just like start making your way to a safe spot. Now, the only way to get the Houthis to stop is Iran. The only way to get the Iranians to do that is to hit them hard. But meanwhile, since we disabled their air defenses, they've rebuilt them. There are news accounts that are talking about they're preparing in case there's an American or Israeli strike against them. But Trump won't let us currently strike Iran because he's got this wheeler dealer thing going. But you know what? The Iranians have basically told the American government where to go and how to get there.
Yeah, you don't make, Mr. President, in case somebody has the ability to get a one single statement of mine to him, Mr. President, you don't make a deal with the polar bear that's trying to kill you. You don't make a deal with a rabid dog. You just don't. This is not a place for business. This is a place for victory. Period.
Now, in the meantime, a number of pro-Israel figures within the Trump administration are being pushed out because the overriding set of influence is associated with J.D. Vance and the so-called quote unquote America First, which is incredibly short-sighted. But now, I guess Vance is already the anointed one for the future. as a sitting vice president, he's in, sort of the catbird seat. But in the meantime, we're still trying to figure out what's going on. What's going on internally in Israel is the Haredi parties, the ultra-Orthodox parties, are threatening long and loud about trying to bring down the government.
Yeah.
Again, remember, in a parliamentary democracy, they can do that. Now, they want to do that because there has been no progress, Baruch Hashem, thank God, on continuing this deferment. I mean, you've got over 13% of the population that by itself is exempted from the social responsibilities of the rest of us Israelis. It's astounding. It's astounding that it's gone on this long. Now, meanwhile, Netanyahu is trying to balance it because he's trying to stay in power. So there could be new, elections coming up.
Well, there was a report. I can't remember which site it was, but actually, they used the words civil war. That was what we were talking about 20 months ago. Is this the place to where people are at right now with this with the indecision in Israel?
Not really.
Okay, I kind of thought that was
a
leading story, but
that's hyperbole.
Yeah.
Certainly, there's no danger from the Haredi ultra Orthodox. They just want their money. They want the money for their yeshivot. They want their money for subsidies. It's a disgusting system.
Yeah.
And idea, and we shouldn't have done it. Now the problem is this whole issue of what do we do with the hostages? And again, it supposedly, this was first announced by the American government, then by Netanyahu. Supposedly, there are only 20 hostages left alive.
Yeah.
And by the way, just so no one's confused about that, having proof of life through a variety of sources does not mean that we know where the hostages are. If we knew where the hostages were, we would do everything we could to go and get them. So, don't,
Yeah.
Please, folks, let's not get silly. Like, oh, Israel knows where the hostages are. Why aren't they doing anything about it? Okay, that's not real.
Well, one of the reasons is because you don't know what building is booby trapped. You don't know what you're walking into. This place with the mines, we just lost 3 more soldiers from the Givati Brigade this in the last few days because of a minefield. It's so easy again, Hanok, for somebody to sit back on the sideline and the armchair quarterback thing. But this is lives. And I remind people when they're hearing things like this that's being said, well, they just need to do this, they just need to do that. Okay, you look at your wife, you look at your children, your grandchildren, and you put them in the situation, and then you go ahead and make that call so fast. That's the way people should be looking at it.
It's without a doubt. Now, having said that, there have been reports here in the center of the country of people hearing booms. So, you check, and all of a sudden, you find that, there's nothing's being intercepted. What are you hearing? This is fascinating. Just picked this up. I think it was just earlier today, late last night. One day blends into the other.
Yeah.
I apologize. But we have a new tactic that we're using in Gaza. We're taking old APCs, armored personnel carriers. We're loading them with explosives. We've got them operated by remote control. They're going into an area with all these booby trap buildings, and they're being exploded. And it's really, you can even hear it up here.
Wow.
And it's and everyone was wondering what it is, and finally, they said that. Now, the other thing that's happened recently that has not gotten notice is the Iron Beam, the laser system, is not fully operational yet. But we have mobile units that have it, and have been knocking down drones. Now, the thing about the Iron Beam, let me explain something to folks. The Iron Dome has a range of approximately 40 kilometers. That's 25 miles. The Iron Beam is 10 kilometers, which is 6.2 miles. I only know this from my days of running road races. 10K races was 6.2 miles. That's how I remember it. Okay. So that's fascinating. Now, meanwhile, last night, after we got our almost daily alert here, and parts of the debris did fall in Modi'in last night. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, no reports of injuries. But 2 missiles were fired from Syria. It's the first time in a year. So, what happened to America's new best friend, the despot of Syria, and why did America just okay 3,500 foreign mercenaries that had been in the Syrian army to be in the new Syrian army? I mean, I read more than I would ever wish anyone to ever have to do. And I sit back and I say, what the heck's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to put in perspective what you said regarding the Iron Beam.
Yeah.
So 10 kilometers, 6.2 miles. You're sitting there in your apartment in Modi'in. You decide to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And they launch a missile out of, Syria, Gaza, wherever it is. But that Iron Beam, especially these that are coming out of Yemen, you may hit that thing at 6.2 miles away, but the trajectory, the velocity, you could have a piece of shrapnel on your
too
forehead.
little, too late. Too little, too late.
I've seen some of these pieces of shrapnel. I've held some of these pieces of shrapnel that came out, back when everything came out of Iran. There's not going to be any difference in your pulse rate and the temperature of your body having been hit by a ballistic missile straight on or a piece of shrapnel that size. You're going to, as one commentator used to say, assume room temperature either way. These are huge pieces of metal. And if you're standing out there and one of these pieces of metal hits you, by the time you're like, wow, the Iron Beam is working, whack, and you're gone.
See, there are no magic solutions.
No. Well, yeah.
Except to take the offensive.
Oh.
And cut off the head of the snake.
I was wondering how long it would take you to start talking crazy.
This is there is no leverage on it's one of the things I'm going to go over in my presentation, kind of giving people. We had this ring of fire surrounding Israel.
Yeah.
Lebanon, Syria, Iraq. This is Hamas. We have little by little picked them apart. Now, there's still danger. There's still danger from Hezbollah. There's still danger from Hamas, particularly if we have to do this ground war kind of thing.
Yeah.
And no matter what we say, and no matter what, the world just believes whatever they want to believe. And the image of where will Jews fit in on the day after this war is concluded? When I say Jews, I mean outside of Israel.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But I have to tell you the depressing news. Aliyah numbers have not increased from the United States of America or Canada, and Canada is a giant. I almost said it. Almost said bad words. But I mean, it is astounding what's going on. Now, here's another little tidbit about Israeli society that I think people will find amusing. We have a shortage of doctors in Israel. Now, I know some of the people listening to this are going to be sitting back saying, how come they don't have Jewish doctors? We have Jewish doctors here, wherever they are in the US. And that's true.
I have one.
I remember I remember a guy who started off working for an HMO because, and he had a very Jewish sounding name, and patients, this was in Minnesota, were selecting him. They would be either this guy or that guy, either one of those two, because they had Jewish names. This is, the whole Jewish doctor thing. So why are we short doctors all of a sudden? Because we got an enormous amount of doctors from the former Soviet Union when the Iron Curtain fell. That was in the 90s. They're all retiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Problem. But this is, something else to deal with.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, I have a doctor that's Jewish, and her first statement to me one time was, uh, well, I've always been afraid to go to Israel. Okay, and you live in Asheville. All right, and this is the statement I made to you the other day, right after the thing in Boulder. What is a Jewish person doing living in Boulder, Colorado? I mean, it was a kind of a cool place when Mork and Mindy were there, but it was still not a place you wanted to live.
But again, I come back to my definition of what does it mean to be Jewish? This
Yeah,
woman, this physician happened to be born to a woman who was Jewish. Doesn't
and
mean she knew anything. Doesn't mean she practiced anything.
no,
Doesn't mean she cared about anything.
and was probably being in that area. I would say, just a profile here. She was liberal. She would have probably defended that flag behind that guy, but had some, there was still some moral code left in her, and the rest of them, and I congratulate them for that. But people don't, Jews don't understand the greatest place of strength that a Jew has is in the land of Israel. And I would say that the greatest place, and I think that you're probably going to go. I have not seen your presentation. Uh, Hoping you'll send me the notes first, so I know what you're going to talk about. But you're talking about this idea of America standing with Israel. I personally believe, and people may think this is absolute crazy talk, but I personally believe that the blessing, the provision, and divine protection that I believe that myself and my family walk in is because we have never held back from going into the land, from being there, from being a blessing to the land, a blessing to the people, never asking what you believe, just are you there? I mean, during the Intifada, I took our grandchildren, or excuse me, I took our children, that's before grandkids. That's an ancient history. My mother of blessed memory is like, my grandchild is 8 years old, and you're taking him where? I said, yeah, we're all going to Israel. I think that today, a lot of what we do as a ministry is because of these things that we've laid out. So what you're talking about in your presentation about
Yeah.
we have a choice today whether to be a blessing to Israel or not. And if
Yeah.
Genesis chapter 12 is right, those that are not, and being a blessing is not just sitting back and going, "Oh, I love the Jewish people." No, it's an active part in the restoration of all things.
It's got to be an action verb.
Yeah, it is.
Can't just be like, yeah, I'm throwing a blessing.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to have as many conversations with people as I've had over the last number of weeks, as I began trying to arrange for this trip, and people are off in their own little world. Israel is something that they kind of, pull out of the closet when it's convenient. They'll put up an Israeli flag, they'll turn to face it to say the Shema in their Shabbat services. Maybe they'll make hummus. One thing that's interesting, I was trying to think to myself, I've said before, and I know it makes you a little uncomfortable, so I don't say it a lot. But I say to people, you got to be more like Mike. You got to be more like Mike. And one of the things is, you know what's interesting, Mike? I noticed this. I'd be hard pressed to find a time when you say, we're going to be having a fundraiser for Israel. We're going to be raising funds for Israel. And the reason I don't hear that from you is because you're always raising funds for Israel. You're
Yeah.
always, and this is, I mean, to your merit, this is, for you and Kathy, Join to Hashem, this is what Join to Hashem is. It's okay. Let me reveal something. It's not presentation related. It actually has to do with my last presentation. Someone that I've known for a number of years. I, we use the term friend loosely.
Hmm.
It's more like a kind of a good acquaintance. Said, and he watched the presentation online, and he said, in watching you talking about yourself and activism and getting arrested in Moscow and in Israel, all these things, said, it dawned on me. And he said, what? He said, I understand when you said that you can't hold back. This is who you are. I bet you can't understand or relate to people who talk about Israel and do nothing. And there was that like long, awkward moment, where you want to say, no, that's not really the case. And if someone is totally alienated from Israel, has never belonged to a congregation where Israel is, or Hebrew or Torah was ever mentioned, I get that they don't understand. I get it. I do. But this person nailed me on that comment. Really.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I made a commitment October 7th. And of course, you know that we didn't just start supporting Israel on October 7th.
no, certainly
But
not.
I've done that since the beginning since the first time I went. But the I made a commitment to those that we work through in the land that I wanted to be able to I wanted to never have to say no when someone called me, when someone messaged me or whatever however they get it, send a carrier pigeon through the window or whatever. I wanted to never say no to them.
Yeah.
And it's because of people, some who watch this program on a weekly basis that have given. I sit there last night and received a donation. It's like I just almost broke out into tears. Um, the the generosity of people through this time has
Yeah.
allowed me to keep my word, my commitment to them. But I'm going to go back to something you said, Hanok, to give a bit of defense to people that are not as connected. I have to tell you, it is difficult. This is staying connected with the land, with the people, with soldiers that I know that are now called back up from reserve to know the names and pray for specific names in the morning,
Yeah.
knowing the face of their mom, their dad. This is not easy.
No.
This is not easy. There are so many distractions in this world. I found it when we got on a plane and went to Colorado. We were there for 5 days. And I mean, it took a concerted effort for me to remain connected. So life tries to separate you into so many places.
Without a
But
doubt.
but in the end, you will always come back to the person that you are, to your identity. To use a this crazy analogy with you, I know how much you love golf. It's right behind weed eating, but yeah, he doesn't. Um, there's a concept in golf that is people get instructors all the time. They pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for instructors, and that instructor will watch you and then try to change your swing. The best instructor will take your swing
And work with it.
and then make it better, tweak it. Because if a person takes a golf swing, that you may be able to learn something new and it work, but 2 weeks later you'll be right back where you were. And so
Yep,
this
that
is
makes sense
based
to me.
upon who are you? You will always come back to your identity. No matter what you're doing in life, you'll always come back to your identity. So when your
Agreed.
identity is in Israel, is in a coming kingdom, all of those things, then that's how you will react by default on this side.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
Okay. Well, once again, we're in agreement.
Big shock.
Yeah. Hey. Well, looking forward to you being here. I mean, it's still a month or so away, but right?
Less than 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm talking about Franklin, your
Oh, yeah.
favorite place.
Yeah, that's more than a month away.
Yeah, I know that you just go to all these other places, so it will, just bring you to here. That's the way
an
we look at
interesting
it
way of
too.
looking at it.
That's the way we
Absolutely.
look at it too, Hanok.
All righty. Cool beans.
All
Mike,
right.
take care of yourself, man.
All right, very good. And for those, if you want to tune in a little bit more regarding the empowerment that's going on in the United States, I would challenge you to go on to get our Foundations for Life. You can get that through my
Great.
website, through Barry's. But we're going to be talking about what's going on in the United States and what we've seen in Europe through the past years is now happening here right before our eyes. Good time to be aware of what's going on.
Agreed.
All right. Take care.
Take care,
See you
man.
next week.
See ya. Bye-bye.